Never let anyone tell you that you should just do your sport, because no one just does their job. Make sure you explore all parts of you, and if you feel like that part fits you, then do it.
Coco Gauff, thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So it's been a big year for you. Second Grand Slam title at the French Open in June. When you think about that, how do you reflect on that moment?
Yeah, winning that title was super important for me. I lost in the finals previously, so I didn't want that to be the last or the outstanding moment for me of that tournament in my career. So to do that was super cool for me, and I had like a lot of momentum going into that, so I was happy to win that title.
So obviously, I think you've had so much success early on that we take for granted that you're only 21 years old. Where do you think you're at in terms of your career development, both on and off the court?
I think on court, I feel like so far away from my potential, which I guess if you asked me that before, I used to think, oh, like it's happening now, so I gotta capitalize the moment. But then I'm like looking at the tour and I'm seeing girls like really having their best results at like 25, 26. So I feel like in 4 years, I feel like I would be where I would like to be. But obviously that doesn't take away from everything I've done right now. But I think I'm just eager to improve and get better.
You've had quite the journey. I'm curious, whose bright idea was it to put a tennis racket in your hand?
My dad's idea. He saw Serena win, I think, Australian Open. I don't remember what year it was, but I was like 5 or 6 years old, and he just bought me a pink racket, and I was hitting against the garage at our house. But I did other sports. I did track and field, I did basketball, I did gymnastics. My parents knew they wanted an athlete. I was whatever those TikTok means of like Project Mbappe or Project LeBron. I was definitely going to be a project something, but then it just happened to be tennis.
Well, that's interesting because both of your parents were high-level athletes. I believe
Yes.
your dad played college basketball and your mom competed in track and
Yes.
field. How did that influence you? I mean, like you said, the project-type athlete
Yeah.
kid here, but how did that impact childhood?
Yeah, I think for me, it just they knew what not to do from their own experiences. My mom, she was a high-level gymnast before she switched to track, but she had to make the next level, she had to move cross-country, and her parents were like, no way, we're doing that. So she pivoted to track and field and was successful at that. And then my dad, he just didn't have really anyone giving him structure in his life when it came to sports, so he was just figuring it out all on his own. So I think they both learned from those experiences, and so when it came time for me to travel with tennis or whatever, they weren't turned off by it. They were like, okay, we're gonna embrace that, because they wish they would have did that for themselves. So I think for like the training part, I think they just learned a lot from their experiences, because they both wanted to be pro in their sports, but just couldn't quite get there. So they're like, how can we not have that happen for our child?
Does that mean childhood was basically pretty unconventional? Always doing this and that?
Yeah, I would say for like the early parts, it was pretty conventional. Like I went to regular school up until like second or third grade, like very early. And then after that, I did online school. We moved from Atlanta to Florida to pursue tennis and do the whole shebang. That was like it is still a popular thing. Florida's the tennis capital of the world.
Yeah.
So I would go to the academy, practice in the mornings, do school in between, and then practice again in the afternoon, and then do school after. So it felt conventional at the time, because so many tennis players go through that process. So I don't feel like the odd one out, but definitely when you compare it to maybe what my brothers are doing, it's unconventional.
Yeah. At what point did you kind of realize that you had a gift, that you're better than everyone else, I guess, at that level, and maybe professional tennis would be something for you?
There was a few moments when I won Little Mo when I was 8 years old. It was like a international tournament. It was in New York City, and it was kids from all over the world coming to play that tournament. And so for me, it was like, oh, like I was just so used to playing people in my backyard. I was like, oh, maybe I actually have a shot. But I was still like only 8, so I didn't have any awareness. But I think when I won Junior French Open, I think I was 13 or 14, 13 when that happened. Final US, yeah, I was 13. I think that's when I realized, okay, a lot of people were winning junior slams and turning pro. So I felt like at that time I knew I would go pro, but it's no guarantee you're going to be successful or not.
Of course. Did the idea of being a child prodigy, was that difficult to deal with? Was that something that you enjoyed?
I think when I was younger, like obviously looking back, I was like, yeah, I was a child prodigy, but at the time I didn't view myself as that. I was just me, and I was just playing tennis, and I didn't compare my ages to anyone or whatever. It was just about me doing the best that I could do. And my parents, even though they were proud of me, but they never made me hype. They never hyped me up. Like, they were like, okay, you're proud, but you're still got to do this and that. So they would never hype me up when it came to that. So my head never, I guess, grasped of like the journey that I was, I guess, set to be out on. But now looking back, I definitely would consider myself that.
That's funny. Obviously, when it comes to achieving anything great, that saying, it takes a village. And your parents really, they made some sacrifices, obviously. Put careers to the side. Mom homeschooled you, dad coached you.
Yeah.
What did that sacrifice mean to you?
Yeah, at the time, I don't think I grasped how, because you don't know any concept of money or anything, and like for me, when we moved from Georgia, we lived with my grandparents like in their house, and obviously as a kid you're not thinking, oh, it's to save money or whatever. I'm just like, oh, I get to go live in Florida, live with my grandparents, and that's so fun to be around my cousins and everything. But now I'm looking back like, yeah, that's crazy. Like we went from a 2-income household to a no-income household, to sacrifice for that. And yeah, I think for me, I know my mom's passion was teaching, and you can still see it in her now when my brothers she has like, our house is like a classroom in some places, but you can see her passion. And for me, for someone to like step aside from that to help support me meant a lot to me. And then my dad, he didn't grow up playing tennis. He didn't know a lot about tennis, but he basically like taught himself everything he knew about tennis to teach me, and I would say he did pretty good at it.
I'd say so too. You mentioned Serena Williams. You've looked up to her a long time. I'm curious, as you're this burgeoning tennis player, what did Serena's influence mean for you?
It meant everything. I think for me, just seeing someone that looked like me thriving in a sport like tennis, I felt like I could be, something like that. I knew I would feel like I would never match to what she has done for the sport and on and off the court. But I was like, maybe I can just like touch like a little bit of her success. And have that representation meant a lot to me, even like the few times I've met her, but I would just grasp every word she said. And even now she'll text me sometimes and I like still can't believe that, I have my idol's number and she's like texting me. So I think, I'll never not fan out about her, and I always make it a point for her to know, like, maybe she doesn't know, or maybe she does, like how much she meant to me, or it means to me, just as being an icon of the sport.
Do you remember when you met her for the first time?
Yeah, I think it was like 10 or 11 years old, and they actually needed a body double for a shoot that she was doing to play a younger version of her. And so that last minute they asked me to do it, and I did it, and I got to meet her at the shoot. And I don't even know if she knew I played tennis at the time or anything like that, but she was just so kind. And I think later on in the shoot, then someone must have told her that I played tennis, so she was just like, oh, keep believing in yourself and work hard, the typical rundown. But like, as a kid, you're just grasping on to everything. And I just remember like her walking by, and it just felt like not real. You could have told me that was Jesus, and I would have been like, oh my God, yes.
Is you said work hard, do well. Is that the best piece of advice she gave you? She ever give you anything?
No, over time when I grew up and like she started to grasp of like maybe who I was. No, I think for me, she told me that there's ups and downs in like this journey, and also with the outside noise and things like that, and just trying to focus on your path, your pathway, and like your expectations of yourself, and not expectations placed by others, because obviously she's the GOAT, so she had to experience so much pressure. So just trying to remind me of that.
Yeah, obviously you face a lot of pressure too. The constant comparisons are also, tough to deal with. I'm curious, your tennis career is progressing. You make your way to the Multimillion-Dollar Academy in France. How does that change the trajectory of your career at that point?
Yeah, that was my first time leaving out the country, and I was training in Florida and anything, but I'd never experienced like training like to that level. Yeah. It was like a whole new thing for me. We were doing like, usually the fitness I was doing at home was just a couple cone drills, suicides, like the typical whatever after school fitness or whatever, but that was just like training, explosiveness, balancing, like all stuff I never knew about. And so I learned a lot from that week that I spent there, and then I went back home and tried to implement it, and then they invited me to come back, and I would still go there, but come back and do more training there. So I definitely think it changed, and it helped me become a good clay court player, which most Americans aren't. It's not our best surface, so I credit that a lot to his academy.
You turn pro in 2018, you win your first match, and then you also get a wild card into the US Open. Year later,
Yeah.
you beat Venus Williams at Wimbledon
Yeah.
at age 15. What was that moment like to you? Was that surreal in any way?
Yeah. Even now, like it's moments when I watch that back, like it doesn't feel like me. That I just feel like I'm watching somebody else. I remember when the draw came out, my dad was like, "Oh, you have Venus," and I remember being inside. I was like, "Oh, that's great." Obviously, you're hoping to play someone maybe ranked a lot lower and not Venus Williams in your first match, which I was definitely hoping for that. But I felt like for me, I just thought that, okay, well, I have nothing to lose out there. So I was like, let me go out there and just see what I can do. And I actually had a conversation with Mary Jo Fernandez. She's a 3-time slam finalist before that. She was like, don't go out there saying how many games you can get, go out there to win. And that conversation like changed my whole perspective of how I approached that match, because I was definitely going out there to see if I can just get a few games and not be blown out.
Well, also, you've always won at every level. So on some level, you're kind of like, I'm out here to win, right?
Yeah, no, you have the belief that you can win, but I feel like there's like a difference of belief and then also like knowing, and like that. I had like belief, but I was like, I don't know if I could do it, especially Venus, like at Wimbledon, that's like she's a queen of that surface. Yeah. And I mean, at the time, I definitely knew grass, and it still isn't, but I definitely knew grass wasn't the best surface for me. But yeah, I think I just remember not looking at the scoreboard because I didn't want to see Venus Williams' name on the thing. I didn't want to look at her. So I was just trying to treat it as me playing the qualifying matches that I did the week prior.
So obviously, a direct result of that success is, people tab you as one of the next great ones, and it becomes, okay, when is Coco Gauff going to win a major? It's not if she's going to win a major.
Yeah.
I just stay focused, stay calm, shut out all the noise, and kind of keep your goals in sight.
Yeah, it was hard, I think, for me immediately after. I remember I played U.S. Open that year, my first Open and main draw, and I won my first couple rounds, and then I played Naomi Osaka, who was a defending champion. I remember going into that match, like, I don't know why, but I just thought I was the favorite, for some reason, because I had so much noise and going on and people saying, she's going to do this, she's going to do that. So I like went in and I was like, okay, I'm supposed to win this match. And obviously I was delusional to think like at 15, you're going to beat the defending champion in your first US Open. Like it can happen for sure, but just, you shouldn't expect it. You should just more believe it. And I think that match was the difference between the Venus match and the Venus match. I believed that I could win, but not expecting it. And that match I went in as like expecting I should win. And I didn't. I got my butt kicked and lost 3-0. And I was like, I felt pretty bad about myself because I was like, how stupid was I? And I think that was like one of those matches where I feel like I was playing the tournament for other people, not for myself. So yeah. I think later on it took a lot of work just realizing to play like for myself. And I think that's when I finally decided that's when I went on a good run and then won US Open.
So obviously, you come up so early, but it takes a little while to kind of get that first Grand Slam. You have a slew of close calls, some quarterfinals, trip to the finals. How challenging was that to kind of come so close to your dream, but not achieve it at those points in time?
Yeah, I think the hardest for me was that Slam final at Roland Garros, because I just felt it was like right there, and I was like, and it feels right there, but I think that experience taught me that for the next final that you're not right there. It's actually you're further away, I feel like, from the trophy in the final than you are in the first round, in a way. And so that is how I approached the second final. But that first one was tough. It took me like a long time to get over that. And I didn't know if I'll ever like see myself in that position again. And I think I thought winning a slam was like going to change my life or something. And it did, like, kind of, but not really. Like, it really didn't do, like, I don't know. I thought I would wake up the next day and feel like Superman. And I just felt like me. And so even though I love winning in that aspect, I think it just took me a while to realize that your life is still going to be your life regardless if you win or lose, and at that point you play freer.
Yeah. No, I think that makes perfect sense. But also, Arthur Ashe Stadium, 2023.
Yeah.
You defeated Arina Sabalenka, first American to win the Open since Sloane Stephens 6 years earlier. What was that moment like? What does that mean to you to do that? Yeah,
that match, it was a crazy match. I remember I went in there and I don't know, I felt like I was just not playing good. I was like, obviously Arena's like a power hitter, and I knew I needed to like run a lot in that match to win, but also like have to be aggressive. And I just felt like all ends of the court just wasn't working for me. Like forehand was not on, backhand was not on. And so I like lost that first set, and then I went in the bathroom and I was like, I'm not gonna have what happened at Roland Garros happen today. And then for some reason from that moment on, I felt like no matter what happened that day, I would win the match. And that's like one of those matches I actually like blacked out on. Like I really didn't know what happened. It was like the most crazy thing that I can describe. Like immediately after, I didn't remember the match. Like even when I was doing interviews and stuff, all I could remember was one point. It was like a break point. I hit a backhand cross passing shot, and that was literally the only thing I remember in that match. And I don't know, I think that just goes to show that I felt like I just let my instincts take over, let the practice and training take over. And to this day, I haven't watched the match back, and I still can't tell you what happened.
So there's no specific reason why you broke through that day. It just
no.
Just happened to.
I think it was just one of those days you just know that today's your day.
Let me ask you, because a lot of players on your level, they don't continue to play doubles as they kind of advance to this point. You obviously doubles Grand Slam champion, at one point were the #1 ranked doubles player. Yeah. Why is that important for you to continue to keep doing?
Yeah, I mean, at the time I don't play as much anymore, but at the time I still love playing, and I think for us the reason we don't play is just the schedule. It's just too busy. But I always knew I wanted to win a double slam because the Williams sisters, they had I think like 14 of them. I knew I wasn't gonna get 14, but I was like, let me just get one. So that was really the main motivation. They played a lot of doubles, and I felt like why would I not do what the best players did? So I played, and I think it helps my game a lot. And even now I try to put it in my schedule. So yeah, for me, it was just important to play and succeed at. And for some reason, I had the idea that my dad he told me that most people would have success in doubles before their singles success. So I always thought I would win my first slam would be a doubles slam, and it never happened, but I lost in 2 doubles finals in the slam. So I think those losses also helped me in the single slams.
Yeah. So kind of as you look ahead on the court, how are you continuing to grow your game?
Yeah, I think I'm just adding a lot more tools in my toolbox and trying to get better at things in my game. And this offseason, I feel like it's going to be an important one for me, so I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, I think just for me, just becoming a better player overall, I think I'm never going to be satisfied with where I am. So just finding things I can constantly improve on, and so that when I go out there and play, I just want to feel like, okay, I want the other girl to feel like they can't win the match regardless of what they do.
I know one of the key things you're kind of restructuring is your serve. I'm curious, how's that going? How's that been? And how challenging is it to kind of reset that for you?
Yeah, it was been hard. I haven't actually practiced since US Open, so but my last match, even though I lost, I served like the best I had in a long time. So I think for me, literally changing my whole entire motion and being able to serve like how I did that last match after a week is like showing me that I can improve so much. And I don't think wasn't sure if I trusted like the process 100% because of the fact this is not the first time I tried this. But with Gavin, I feel very confident in it, and I think in a week improvement, everyone saw the improvement. So I'm just looking forward to having more time on the court.
As a top player, is it tricky to make a change like that in season, knowing like fans are watching, media's watching, people are going to say stuff? Yeah,
definitely. I think getting asked the same question over and over was like annoying, but. I knew what to expect when I made that decision, but I made it for me at the end of the day. And I just think of like all the players, like I've talked to Roger and Rafa and things, and they would, add things to their game just to be, the other big three, so Novak, and then they would add things to their games just to be that one person. And I feel like for me, that's important for me to do if I want to do as well against the other players on tour.
So we've talked a lot on the court. I want to pivot off the court because you've had so much success there.
Yeah.
How old were you when the sponsors started to give you interest, start calling?
I don't know when they first started calling. Probably pretty young, I would say, for sure.
Do you remember your first deal?
Well, my first time I signed like a pro deal with money and everything was, I think, New Balance when I was 14. But like as far as like when the calls, I would say probably like 8, 9, 10 years old.
Wow.
But my parents refused to sign anything too early. But yeah, obviously I wasn't aware of it at the time for sure.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I'm glad you mentioned New Balance because I'm curious, what drew you to them specifically?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm always transparent with this conversation. I wanted to be a Nike person at first, and they love this when I say this now because that was like the thing, when you're younger and in tennis, like every top junior was with Nike. But for me, what drew them to me was the uniqueness of it, and that, they saw the long-term plan when it came to me as a person on and off the court, and they were willing to support things that I wanted to pursue off court, which for me was really important. And I think I always say I wanted to not be known as a tennis player. I want to be known outside of that, and they really allowed me to do that and make that impact, and allowing me to do things like with Miu Miu, allowing me to do things with other things that we've done, allowing me to have my own signature shoe before I even won a slam, which is very uncommon. So I think for me, I think they were just supportive of that from the beginning, and I'm glad I made that decision. That's for sure, I would say, the best decision that I ever made as far as like any of my deals, I would say, for sure.
Wow. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, you mentioned, though, you're getting interest as a young kid. You're obviously a teenager navigating this world. So there's this element of balance in terms of, not, doing too much with sponsors and keeping the focus on the court. How did you balance that when all these offers or these obligations start coming through? Were your parents key there? What did that look like?
Oh, parents were 100% key. They made me aware enough, but not like too aware, where I felt like I had to do this to, meet this criteria or do, accomplish this. So I never knew anything about that, but it was also them choosing brands that knew that tennis was the main focus, and all of this was after that. And so, yeah, keeping the limitation of the amount of brands that I signed with at a time. Obviously, I've added more as I've gotten older and been able to handle more. But when I was younger, I really didn't sign, as many as I could have. And I'm glad that I didn't, because I think I would have been lost in the sauce when it came to that.
Why is now, well, for the past few years you've been ramping up a bit, but why is now like the time to kind of strike? Do you feel like you're ready to kind of expand?
Yeah, I think I've been able to gauge what my threshold is when it comes to just how I structure my year. And I feel like when I was younger, I was also doing school on top of that. So it was just not enough time in the day. And so now as an adult, I feel like I know where my threshold is. And so we've been able to maximize that threshold, basically. And yeah, I feel like we've been doing a good job of keeping me the focused tennis, but also being able to explore other opportunities as well.
What level of authenticity do you strive for when you're working with a sponsor? Because I know, like, in the past you worked with Barilla, you're a big pasta eater, I am too. That's like a no-brainer there.
Yeah.
It fits your life. I know not every deal can be like that, but
Yeah.
kind of to what extent are you looking at it like that?
Yeah, I would say pretty much most of them, if not all of them, are all something that I was doing prior to my life, and then it's just, doing it with this brand, or I was already doing it with that brand, and is now I get to capitalize off of that.
Yeah.
One recent one is Naked. I was already drinking their smoothies, and I was already doing fruit and things like that. So it's like now I get to always capitalize and also share with other people something on a much broader scale, which is pretty cool. Or like Bose, I was been walking with earphones on the court since you guys first saw me.
Yeah.
So like now I get to have my custom headphones and be able to get a brand to customize them to my outfit and share that with other people. So I think it's just things like that I think with all my brands, I try to make sure that it's something that I do and use, and I have had opportunities that I've turned down because I just knew it wasn't authentic to me, even if it's something as silly. I don't want to put any brand on the spot, so I'm not going to say. But silly things that, for sure, I could have just sat there and put my face on it and no one would ever know. But I'm just like, I know that's not what I do, and I'd rather not do something that I know I don't really use, because I feel like it's not fair to my audience either to kind of lie.
No, that makes sense. I'm curious, kind of in this age of the athlete investor, where athletes are doing more and more different things business-wise, investing, taking equity, looking long-term, how are you growing your money long-term? How are you setting up your future?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm just learning a lot from my dad. He's worked well in the corporate world and worked well with me and his advisors and my advisors of just investing and finding the right brands to invest in. One popular one is an Unrivaled, which I'm really happy about. And for me, it's making these investments not only for long-term gain, but also to invest in things that I feel like can just impact the world on a cultural level. And for me, that was Unrivaled was one of the main ones that I like to talk about, just because I feel like, yes, this is great and it can help me, but also just investing in women's sports and putting them at the threshold and on the front page, and not just in tennis, but in sports I care about, like basketball.
You've also launched your own representation practice, and I'm curious, like obviously, you're with your previous agency long term, but you decided to make this decision. What was the need for doing this, and what do you think you can unlock with your career?
Yeah, I think the main thing was just to have more control in what I want to do. And as I've gotten older, I've not only don't want to be like a face of brands, like obviously I want to still do that, but also be the brand, if that makes sense. And my dad always said that this was his plan for me when I was younger, and if it was up to me if I wanted to hop on board or not. And yeah, 100%. When I became 18, I knew that this was something that I wanted to work for and work towards. And obviously, it's very early stages, but I want to be able to produce and do things outside of the sport. And I feel like having this representation alongside with the support of WME can help accomplish those goals.
And one of the other things, with your business is obviously the upcoming deal with the religion of sport.
Yeah.
Curious what that does for you, kind of why you angled for that, where that fits into the portfolio.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited about that because that's been a passion of mine. Alongside with tennis, probably one of my first passions is just to tell story and storytelling. And I feel like there's so many stories that just in my world that I see that I wish that the whole entire world can see, and especially being a Black woman. And I feel like there's just so many untold stories. And I think with this and partnering with them, I can tell stories through that. So I'm really looking forward for that. I think that's the most exciting thing that I have going on, and I can't wait to share more with other people.
We did talk a little about Serena before. She's obviously a pioneer in terms of the athlete, investor, venture capitalist. I'm curious, has she ever given you any advice off the court in this kind of arena?
No, I've never gotten advice from her with that, but I will say she is someone that I've looked up to not only on court, but when it came to that too, and how I model who I want to be off court. And so for sure, when I saw all the things that she was doing with her venture company and also her husband as well, I was like, I kind of want something like that for myself, but in a more personalized way for me.
Yeah. To switch gears a little bit, we're kind of in this moment where the popularity of women's sports is rapidly growing. Excuse me. Obviously, in terms of men's and women's tennis, there's still discrepancies, whether it's pay gap outside of Grand Slams or scheduling of matches. I'm curious, how do you see yourself using your platform to kind of advocate for these things, and where should we be focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, in Grand Slams, we're obviously there when it comes to the prize money, but in the tour, it's a very big gap. And I think the start is for sure targeting the combined events, the ATP and WTA combined events, because for me, there's no reason we're both playing 2 out of 3 sets, playing at the same venue. And sometimes, there's female players like me, Irina, Iga, Jess, who are selling out selling out some of these stadiums more than some of the other guys and they're getting paid way more. So I just think on a fair standpoint that's one of the, and some combined events have that, but I would like to reach all of that first, and then we can work our way down when it comes to 500s and 250 level. But I think combined events, when you look at it objectively, it definitely doesn't make a lot of sense why the pay gap is that large.
Yeah. You've also been an advocate for social justice and fought for impactful change here in our country. I'm curious, what would your advice be to young up-and-coming Black athletes about how they can do the same and follow what you've already done?
Yeah, I would say first, make sure that this is something that you want to do and not feel like you have to do. I always knew I wanted to. With the history of my grandmother, she was one of the first student to integrate a local high school in Florida. So I always knew that I felt like when she made such a sacrifice at her age, I think she was 15 when she did that I can easily make a post or talk about it in interviews, nothing compared to the sacrifice she had to go through with being called all types of things just to go to school. So I knew that was something I wanted to do from very young, and it was nothing, honestly, my parents tried to steer me away from it because of the backlash that it could get, but I just feel like I would be doing a disservice if I didn't show up authentically as who I am, not only on the court, but off the court. So I would say just make sure it's something you want to do, not that you feel like you have to, and never let anyone tell you that you should just do your sport, because no one just does their job. Your mailman isn't just delivering mail, or even Beyonce isn't just only singing on stage. You're a whole person, so make sure you explore all parts of you, and you feel like that part of that, it fits you, then do it.
One thing I did want to ask you about, the world's evolving very fast. Obviously, technology is changing the way we interact, we do things, we gather. Live sports has been one of the last things that, people are just, it's appointment viewing, people gather for it. I'm curious, professional athlete who draws crowds both in person and on TV, what does the energy of the crowd mean to you? What does it mean to you that you are kind of a source for this large social gathering that people still get together and, go to the US Open and enjoy that stuff?
I think it's really cool, and I think being an athlete is one of the coolest things ever, because you can get people from all types of backgrounds, all ethnicities, all religions to kind of root for one thing, which in this world is not a lot of times you can get that. So I think, especially in tennis, because having all these people root individually for me, you know, it's not like a team sport where people are usually tied to their team because their parents rooted for that team or because they lived there. So I think being a tennis player and having that support, especially when I'm playing at US Open, is like really cool. And when you think about it, like how I think about it, it just feels like really cool to get like 20,000 people when I'm playing at US Open. Like basically out of those 20,000 people, at least all of them, if not all of them, are rooting for you. I think that's like a pretty cool feeling, to be honest.
What about, you know, obviously the business of being a tennis player is outside of the tournament, you know, playing, you know, whether it's exhibitions or this or that. You know, one of the things that's popped up, these events at Madison Square Garden or at Prudential Center, you know, where 30,000 people will come out to see, you know, you play in the center there.
Yeah.
Has that changed the way you see, you know, being a tennis player, or is that just, you know, something that's coming and going? What do you think of those types of events?
Yeah, I'm someone who doesn't do I used to do exhibitions when I was younger, but I haven't done one in a while, and I don't really do them. And not because of anything. I just feel like I don't know. I feel like when the right opportunity comes up, I'll do it. I'm one of those people. I like to limit how much I'm like spending on court, and you know, it'll take a lot for me to go out there and do an exhibition, but I think it's a cool thing because of the fact that you get to see players have fun, you get to see them also compete, and some of them also have like prize more money for the winner, so people are actually trying sometimes. So I think it's a cool thing, and I definitely will want to do one in the future. But yeah, as for now, I've kind of limited it just so I can, when that moment comes up in the future, it'll feel more special for all the people involved, not just me, but also the fans too.
Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense. I know at 21 years old, we're in kind of like the first set of life here, but I'm curious, like, do you think about what you want your legacy to be?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I think on court, I want to win more. But yeah, I just want to be known as how I'm kind of known now. I would like that to stay the rest of my career, someone who's mentally strong and doesn't give up. And, you know, you have to be there from the first to the last point. And then off court, I always say it's important for me to be remembered, like as a good human and someone that impact people's lives, like not just from them watching me play tennis, but actually impact their lives. And that's the main thing. And I always tell my dad and my mom that's what I want for my life. Because, you know, sometimes you can get, or now that I'm in this career, I can see how we can get lost in the sauce and kind of lose yourself in it. And I just don't want to lose myself, so I'll want to make sure I never do that. And so I'm glad I have the people around me that I do to make sure I'm staying on that path. And hopefully when this is all over, I can be like, I did my best, and some people can, you know, their only memory of me wouldn't be winning, but also how I impact them in some type of way, whether it's something I say or did.
Any business goals specifically?
Ooh, I mean, I would love with everything I'm doing with religion and sport to transpire to something bigger. I would love to produce like a feature film. That's one of my goals in the future. But as far as that, I would love to have my own brand one day. I don't know what that would be in, but I would love to do that and maybe like start something from the ground up.
So before I let you go, though, I got to ask you what you're doing when you're not winning tennis tournaments, because I saw your interview about seeing weapons, which I saw as well, and I had a very similar reaction in theater. But I'm curious, what do you like to do when you're not on the court?
Oh, I love movies. I go to movie theaters like all the time by myself. I support my brothers. They both playing sports, so being a fan at their sporting events. And I like to crochet. I like to read. And yeah, just trying to find ways to be creative outside the sport. So yeah, and design my kits. I think that's fun too.
I know you're a big anime fan.
Yes.
Big fan of My Hero Academia.
Yes.
I have my own personal favorites, but I'm curious if you can give me a few recommendations.
Hunter x Hunter is like, I think my favorite of right now. It's maybe because it's the first one I ever watched, but for some reason it's my favorite. It's not really anime, but some people who watch anime haven't seen it. It's Avatar: The Last Airbender. Yeah, and a lot of anime watchers haven't seen that, which is crazy for me. Death Note is good, and then Demon Slayer is really good too. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Coco, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me.